right. It is Wednesday, March 5th at 6:30 p.m. and this is the Riverside School District 96 Committee of the Whole meeting. Kathy, will you please call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Barsadi.
Present.
Ms. Gunn.
Here.
Ms. Kalick.
Here.
Mr. Marhol.
Here.
Mr. Hunt.
Here.
And Mr. Muirhead.
Here.
A quorum is present.
All right. Is there any public
There is not.
comment? Okay. All right. Tonight we have a pretty brief agenda, and I guess it doesn't matter for anybody watching this recording, but we started 30 minutes early today because we're going to go into a closed session related to our contract negotiations with the union that's coming up. Before we dive into tonight's agenda, are there any changes proposed? There's not very many things on here in the first place, but I'll ask. Okay. So with that, we will get into education. So Ms. Kalick.
So I'm going to give it to Angela to give us an update on the advanced learning review that has been going on.
Good evening, everybody. I'm tonight just going to give you an update on what we've accomplished up to this point in the Advanced Learning Program Review, and then what the next steps are so that you are aware of where we're at and where we're going. To start with, we have our Advanced Learning Program Review Committee. It's made up of our 3 advanced learning teachers at the elementary level. There are 3 middle school teachers that are on the team. They all teach an advanced class of some sort, whether it's math or ELA. And then a classroom teacher from the elementary school, a 5th grade teacher, Mr. Becker, and then Ms. Gorman, Mr. Harvalis, and myself. The purpose of this committee is to conduct a comprehensive evaluation of the district's advanced learning enrichment programming for our students in kindergarten through 5th grade, or through 8th grade, sorry. And we're focusing on ensuring the program effectively meets the academic and social emotional needs of our advanced learners, as well as ensuring best practices for identification and qualification, and identifying areas for continuous improvement. We're looking at enrichment across all grade levels, and then advanced learning services being separate from enrichment for those kids who might need more. So if you think about MTSS and how we've talked about we provide support and interventions to the 15 to 20% of students who might be at the lower end of the percentile spectrum, then that means that 80% of our students can access the core curriculum, whether it's math or ELA or even science and social studies. They're able to access the core curriculum at a tier 1 level without major support. So they might have some small group instruction, or teachers might do some reteaching, but there's not major supports for that tier 1 group. So what we're doing with advanced learning then is we want to address the top 10 to 15% of that 80% of students who are accessing the tier 1 core curriculum. So we're looking at the top of the group that can access the core curriculum. The goals of this review are to ensure that we're committed to providing all of our students with challenging and enriching educational experiences that foster their intellectual growth and prepare them for future successes. So through this review, working with the consultants from the Northwestern Center for Talent Development, we're going to receive some recommendations from the consultants from Northwestern Center for Talent Development. And what we want to utilize those recommendations for is to ensure our student needs are met, so that we are ensuring our program effectively meets the needs of our advanced learners and provides them with appropriate and consistent challenges and supports. We want to optimize our identification and qualification. Right now, our qualification for our advanced learning program is very test dependent. And so working with the consultants, we're looking to see if that's the best way to identify our students, to rely solely on testing, or if there might be other ways that are utilizing best practices to identify students, so that we're ensuring we're capturing the students, all students who are able to be successful in the advanced learning program. And we want to maintain our program alignment. We want to ensure the program aligns with best practices and reflects our commitment to continuous improvement and a commitment to excellence. So the process for this review is that working with the consultants from the Northwest Center for Talent Development, we are engaging in a collaborative and data-driven process. And so that process includes a data analysis. The consultants have received student achievement data that is anonymous. It doesn't have any names attached to it, has non-identifying numbers attached to it. They're looking at program participation data, and they're reviewing feedback from students, staff, and families. They're examining current research and best practices in advanced learning, and evaluating the program's curriculum, instructional strategies, and supports, and that's been done through classroom observations, through surveys, and through focus groups. And then gathering stakeholder input through feedback on surveys, as well as focus groups with staff, students, and families. And then the consultants will take all this information, compile it, make recommendations, and the team will work with those recommendations then through a collaborative decision-making process where we'll engage in open discussions, transparent discussions to review those recommendations, and then make informed decisions regarding the future of our programming. That future could include strategies for implementation, for identification, for future evaluation, looking at all aspects of our programming. So how we got to where we're at right now, we started in October, the end of October. We had a kickoff meeting where we started with introductions and the why of the committee, the purpose of the team, and the process. In November, we, as a committee, the consultants brought to us the surveys that they wanted to use for the staff and families and students, and we reviewed that survey to make sure it really reflected our programming, reflected what we wanted to know as staff members in District 96, and to ensure that like even the language was appropriate. There were certain terms that the consultants used on the survey initially that didn't fit what we do here, so just even wordsmithing the survey at times. In January, we met as a committee with the consultants to talk about the focus groups, talk about the questions that would be asked at the focus groups, when the focus groups would occur, the different logistics for the focus groups, and then they started the focus groups the week of January 20th with 6 parent focus groups. There were 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening on separate days. There were 3 sessions for families that have students in our advanced learning service program currently, and there were 3 sessions for families that don't have students in the advanced learning program currently. And that's just because the focus is a little bit different if you're already in the program, as opposed to families who may not be in the program and may not be in for various reasons, including their kid might have been close but didn't get in. So it was able, by having different focus group types, we were able to hone in then with questions that were specific to those groups. And I keep saying we, but I was not a part of any of the focus groups because we wanted to make sure, 1, it was anonymous, and 2, nobody felt unable to answer any of the questions. So I wasn't in any of the parent, staff, or student focus groups. Or the administrative focus group. I wasn't in any of them. So then we also had the student focus groups the week of January 27th. I forgot to mention, about 55 parents participated in the parent focus groups. 33 who have students in the program and 22 who do not have students in the program. With our student focus groups, the consultants visited all 5 schools. They spoke with about 180 students total between 3rd through 8th grade. They talked to students who are receiving services, students who are not receiving services, and they also, during that time, observed classes. They observed advanced learning instruction at the elementary level. They observed core classrooms at Hauser, advanced and core in ELA and math, as well as social studies and science classes. So they really wanted to get a feel for how instruction looks in all settings, because we have advanced learners who are taking science and social studies classes, right? And but there isn't an advanced science or social studies class. So how are we meeting our students' needs in those core classes, as well as how are we meeting students' needs who might need challenges in our core math or core ELA classes? So they wanted to see across the board, what does instruction look like? And then we had staff focus groups the week of February 3rd. There were 10 sessions, 6 for the elementary teachers and 4 for the Hauser teachers. They occurred before school, during the school day, during lunch hour, during after school. We really wanted, with all the groups, to make sure there were times that would hopefully fit anybody's schedule. We wanted to make sure we were open and inclusive of everybody. There were 25 plus staff members that participated in the focus groups. Our primary teachers didn't really participate because they didn't feel that the advanced learning portion really impacted them. That's something that we're going to discuss a little bit more as we get the data recommendations from the consultants, because our primary teachers are impacted when we talk about how are we enriching students who are succeeding at our primary grade levels as well. So that's how we got to where we are currently. I did forget to mention there was an administrative focus group for our leadership team. As I said, I didn't sit on that. Martha didn't sit on it as well, so that our administrators were also free to express all their thoughts, the positives and concerns that they might have with our current programming. And then we did have a focus group specifically for advanced learning teachers at the elementary level, and I believe some of the junior high advanced learning teachers might have joined them as well. Nope, I'm wrong. It was just the advanced learning teachers at the elementary level, but a chance for them to talk about their concerns specific to how the program has impacted them. So that's where we're at right now. So our next steps are, the consultants are currently performing the data analysis. And that data analysis is looking at the student achievement data, program participation data, the feedback from the surveys and the focus groups from all the stakeholders, and then also an analysis of program communication efforts. They're going to also then formulate actionable recommendations for program improvement and include strategies for implementation and evaluation, continued evaluation of our programming. The consultants will bring their recommendations to our committee late March, early April, and the committee will spend April, early May analyzing those recommendations for program improvements, and we'll make a decision as a committee on which recommendations we feel we should implement and when to implement them, so developing a timeline, which we'll communicate then to all stakeholders, of course, including the Board of Education, as we talk about the plan for recommendations, which the committee has decided to implement. One of the important things to note is that if there are changes to programming or any changes that might involve FTE, you might look at this timeline and wonder how will we implement that for next year. We may not start implementing everything in the 25-26 school year. We will make the plan, and then we will do the work and have the conversations with the needed parties to then have full implementation during the 26-27 school year. There might be small things that we could begin to implement for the 25-26 school year, but major things like changes in FTE would most likely wait for a year before we did something like that. So that's where we're at now, how we got to where we're at now, and where we're going from here. And do you have any questions for me?
I was going to ask you how the engagement was with the different groups, but you weren't in any.
I wasn't in it.
Do you have any feedback on, did consultants provide anything that would be useful of just kind of how it went, or any high-level themes or anything like that that you could share?
So the consultant said that the engagement was really good across all the groups, that everybody had a lot of things to say, both positive and then just some concerns or interests that they had for programming. I also received emails from various parents who were appreciative of the process and felt that it went really well and was moderated well by the consultants. They're still looking at the data, so it's hard for them to give a lot, to give some answers on themes because they want to overlay the student achievement data, okay. And they're still working on that piece. But one of the things that they did point out is that communication is definitely an area of opportunity. That they found through their focus groups and surveys that many staff and parents are not fully aware or don't understand the process for identification, as well as for the scope of services and our metrics related to advanced learning. And so there's this piece of communication and transparency that's missing across the board, not just for our families, but even staff members are not always able to explain how a student might qualify for advanced learning or what other opportunities there are for acceleration or even enrichment. And so that's something that they did say they can see right now will most likely be one of the recommendations, is working on communication and providing specifics on how to do that.
I would agree with that.
Being the one who fields a lot of teacher questions, I agree as well. Yeah.
how do we do it now? I mean, do we just, noting that it's a more test-heavy evaluation process, are the kids just testing in and then we're letting parents know that, hey, you're...
Yes, so we have a matrix that we utilize to qualify students. You receive points on this matrix based off of MAP testing, COGAT testing in 3rd and 5th grade, and then a curriculum-based measure assessment. And that curriculum-based measure assessment is supposed to be an assessment of how well the students learned the standards that were taught in the class. So you have standardized testing through MAP, you have cognitive testing through the COGAT, and then you have the curriculum academic testing through that curriculum-based measure. And if you get a certain number of points, you need a minimum of 90% on MAP to get any points on the matrix for the MAP testing. You need a minimum of 80% on the curriculum-based measure to get any points on the matrix. And you need a minimum of 120 on the COGAT to get any points on the matrix. You have to get a certain number of points on the matrix to qualify. And that is all ran in June, and families are notified it's ran May and June, and families are notified by the end of June of all their kids' test scores. So everybody gets a letter that says, this is your child's assessment profile, here's their MAP scores, or their spring MAP scores, their COGAT score from the last time they took it, whether it was 3rd or 5th grade, their curriculum-based measure score, and then on the back of that letter, it has the matrix, which is confusing for parents. And then if your child qualified, then you get a letter attached that says your child is qualified for this class or these classes, and it explains then those classes. What I've noticed over the years of doing this that's confusing is, one, when you have the matrix on the back, parents, it's a confusing matrix. I very much simplified it right now, but parents are confused by it, and they'll get phone calls saying, so did my kid qualify or did my kid not qualify? When you don't include the matrix, because one year I was like, well, let's just not include it. Then you get a lot more questions. Did my kid qualify or did my kid not qualify? And then there is an appeals process, which our advanced learning process was developed prior to me through another committee that did the work and worked with another consultant and did a great job moving from where they were to here. And now we just need to continue to improve. But the appeals process is just looking at more testing. So if you don't qualify, but a different cognitive assessment score could help you qualify, then I administer a different cognitive assessment one-on-one in the summer. If you don't qualify, but a higher MAP score could help you, we'll look at your fall MAP score and see if that qualifies you. If you didn't qualify, but you could get the points you needed to qualify from the curriculum-based measure, then we look at the IAR to see if you exceeded on the IAR, and if you did, that can qualify you. So the appeals process isn't really an appeal, it's just looking at more testing. And so that's another piece to look at. But that's why we've noted that the process for getting into advanced learning is very test dependent.
Yeah. But somebody else here may remember, but I thought part of the reason it became more test dependent was to get away from the subjectiveness of other things, and it's still an appeal, it's just an appeal to other data and not an appeal to look for more soft measures.
Yes, and that was what the committee was working on. What we're looking at is, through best practices, is there a way to have a combination of the two and to have the test results, but there are students who may not perform well on tests, perform well in the classroom and show that they have the propensity to be able to succeed in an advanced learning class and have that push. And so how do we reach those kids as well if you're not a good test taker?
And how do you indicate in an appeals process that that's a possibility of...
Exactly. Without it being too subjective, where
your dilemma is you have a dilemma.
I mean, it's more testing, but does any of the fast bridge stuff, that more like regular, because that's more of just like a general assessment, isn't it? If I understand it correctly, of like progress in, or does that not really do us?
It
much?
wouldn't really
No,
help us
okay.
with that because it's more foundational skills than it
Okay.
is looking at like deep instructional pieces.
Okay. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's just there are just some students that just don't do well on tests, and so banking things all on testing is always a concern of mine. But yeah, you got to take the subjectivity out of it. So I'll be interested to hear what the additional recommendations are.
And I just, more of a comment, I attended as a parent, one of the sessions, I thought there was a lot of engagement. I actually wound up feeling really good about it because I thought I was the only very confused. I'm like, I'm a board member and a parent, I should exactly know how this works and how my kid got in or didn't, or in this case in. And I was like, I don't think I fully understand it either. I was not alone. There was a lot of, echoing either the communication or just not understanding, or as you've been saying, it is a confusing matrix. I think some other themes that came up just within my own were, having to do with maybe some of the differences between, qualifying for ELA advanced versus math, and then, being able, ELA being kind of locked in, math sort of being on a, what are we on? Not quarters,
Trimester.
sorry, trimester type system, and then families who joined the district later, they joined in junior high, they didn't test in 4th grade. Those were some of the questions and, conversations that were happening during my particular session. So, but yes, it was a lot of engagement, and it's nice to know that I wasn't the only confused parent.
Yeah, you're
So,
not.
I think, yes, we can agree the communication part and understanding, or, I don't know if we assess against other, when we talk about best practices, or do we look at other schools that have successful, programs? I guess how can one determine or measure that?
I can tell you that
models.
it's a conversation with the curriculum people in different districts through West 40, because we constantly talk about it at monthly curriculum meetings. None of us are happy with our processes. All of us see that there are different areas to change, different things to do, different pieces that we could do differently. Whether it's relying less on tests, whether it's not using a cognitive assessment, whether it's some districts start in 2nd grade identifying, some districts wait till junior high to identify, everybody's doing something different. But that's one of the nice things about having a consultant help with this review process, is that these are people who, their job is to work, at the Northwestern Center for Talent Development, and they're working with other districts doing the same type of review process, and they're in the research. So that's where their recommendations come in handy, because it's not just the anecdotal conversations from other curriculum directors and assistant soups for curriculum. It's people who are knee deep in the information regularly.
And I'll just say, not just because my son's advanced learning teacher is in this room, overwhelming positivity for the teachers and what they are doing in these classrooms. It was more around the identification, the communication, the process.
Yeah.
But everybody in my session, overwhelmingly positive on, once they're in it, what they're getting from, their advanced learning curriculum.
And I find that all the time when I talk with parents, just from 4th grade through 8th grade, the rave reviews that parents have for our advanced learning teachers. And my own personal son, who attends Hauser, is not in the advanced learning program. He's not test well. But I have often said to some of the junior high advanced teachers, I really wish he'd get in, because just the things that they do to further challenge and deepen the standards at the different grade levels it's great. But that's also what this review is going to do, is how do we also have those similar opportunities for kids in core, so that I know Martha and I were just invited to an ELA advanced learning. They're doing a debate on from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet about free will, and we were invited to see the debates that they'll have on free will and driving your destiny. And that's one of the advanced learning class things, and it's great, and the way they prepare for it is wonderful. I saw it last year, and I'm looking forward to this year's presentations or debates. but it's an advanced learning thing, and I would love for my son to have a part of that. So that's why this review process is happening, so that we can also see how do we have those opportunities for students who aren't in advanced learning.
I think that's key. You know, there's so much of a philosophical and theoretical underpinning to it all, as well as working through the logistics and nuts and bolts of it all. And one of the challenging conversations for school districts is how do we make sure that our systems are absolutely equitable and inclusive, and that our teachers are doing a beautiful job differentiating for the needs of all students. But it's when student needs become sort of, I'll say, to the top of the class, where a teacher might not be able to differentiate to that level. You know, is there a different level of supports and services, in the same way we may say it about special education or our reading supports or our math intervention. So there's a lot to it. I appreciate where the very detailed pieces of the process, and then I think something for the committee will continue to grapple with, and I know they already are, is this exactly this idea that I don't want us to think that somehow you have to be in an advanced class to have these wonderfully enriched experiences. And I actually don't think it's true.
It's
that
not.
You have to be in those
Right.
classes for those experiences. So I think we have to be really thoughtful about, and I know we are being that way, but I think that's really, really important. And it's something the board will hear more about as we hear the recommendations that will come from Northwestern too.
And I appreciate you saying that it's not true that you have to be in an advanced class to have these enriching experiences. Our core classes have great experiences as well, and there are great things happening in those classes too. We just want to make sure that it, as Martha said, that it's equitable for all.
Challenge everybody at the level that they're at,
Yeah,
Yeah.
which really
Yeah.
kind of gets back to that whole universal delight.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is very challenging to do.
Yeah,
So.
right. Right.
Thank you for attending, Stephanie, because my wife and I debated, and we ended up not, because I'm like, I'm at the table, I could put my feedback in anytime I want, so maybe I should have just jumped in one of those things, so. It's like, yeah. Yeah, well. Well, I'm glad you're getting good feedback out of that. I will say, since going back to when I was first on the board, maybe slightly before that, it was probably that first year, I know there was a number of people that approached me about the advanced learning. I was so new at that point, I had no idea, but just a lot of desire of like trying to have some more, or whatever it was that they were looking for, but a lot of questions about how do I, like, what are the qualifications for it? How do I get my child into it? How do I know if they're ready for it? Things like that. And then what does the programming look like? Asking for more programming for those that were in it, things like that. So I'm glad we're undertaking this at this point, and hopefully we'll have some good recommendations here in a couple months.
Yes.
Cool. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
I have just a very quick item of Goal 4. I didn't want to ignore Goal 4. We had our family literacy night last Wednesday night. We had about 75 students with their parents attend the evening. I know Dan and his daughter were there, so thanks for being there.
It's a lot of fun.
Not the same. We had a lot more for Family STEM Night a year ago, thinking maybe the STEM may have just been more appealing to families, but I'm still really happy with the turnout. We had about 23 staff members that helped out running different stations and activities, so a huge thank you to all of them. I continue to thank Sarah Hickey every opportunity I get. So again, wanted to say thank you on that. We will have more detailed update about sort of the work of Goal 4 as well as Goal 2, and Nora's actually homesick this evening, so we didn't have that on the agenda anyway, but just want to share. Today we had a Living the Plan session with all of our goal champions and action team leaders, and had an opportunity to check in. Here we are in year 4 of our strategic plan, and where are we? Where do we want to get to yet next year? And then for the board, it won't be that long. We'll be having a conversation about the process for developing our next 5-year plan. So any questions about sort of goal, education committee goal areas in
A
general?
slight bit of feedback for the family literacy night. Let's see, I think there were sessions, there were literacy sessions I would have loved to have gotten to. I think I think there was something like crafting or something for the kids that was available. On the way back here, because I think the sessions were held in this room, on the way back there were the escape rooms. And once you're in, you can't escape.
So you didn't make it past the escape rooms to get to
Didn't
the
make it
parent
past the escape room to
information.
get
Got
here,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
loved the escape
Yeah,
rooms. It was
yeah.
great. Had a great time
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
That was.
I had one student say, "I've never been in an escape room. I can't wait." And I thought, this isn't gonna be quite like that. They had to go through a lot of different like puzzle activities, and then when they would get a code, and eventually you got enough code information that you were done with the activity. I don't I guess that means you were then released from the escape room, but
Well,
good
I think you
feedback,
got a
right?
certificate of completion
Yeah.
at the end, which we got at the end.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah,
just-
but you miss the the parent event then.
Yeah, it was hard for the
Yeah.
parent to step away from
Yeah,
that, I guess.
yeah, that's funny. Good, and good feedback, I appreciate it, so. Yeah, there was a lot going on.
Absolutely, and it was a great event.
That's education, I think, right?
All right, thank you. I don't see anything on for Finance Committee, so unless you want to give any updates, no? Okay. Then we'll move into facilities, Mr. Morrow.
Sure. The agenda's in the packet. I will note I'll highlight a couple of things, mostly because some of the items that are there we've already addressed in the regular board on the larger level, and that being the security update and the 2 bids we approved last session. One note I did have is that the masonry contractor noted that they did do exceptional work, or Steve said that, and that should be a 30 to 40 year fix. So that's just something everybody should know. There was some question about whether or not some of the summer work will impact things. At Hauser, there's going to be a lot of dust because of the grinding to get the joints cleaned up. The boiler work should be all right except for contractor parking. That's not going to be a super noisy activity. A lot of it is just doing technical things in the boiler room itself. There is going to be replacement of the pervious concrete that's out on the basketball court, because that was, Wesley and I have seen there's areas of degradation.
They ripping the whole thing out and putting it back in? Yeah,
It
just redo
was a bad mix.
Okay.
It's just not sticking together the way it should. As long as there's no arguments about what needs to be done, it's a non-issue.
It's a pretty relatively small area, so it shouldn't be too bad, right?
Well, I mean, it's the basketball court.
Yeah.
But I mean,
What, a couple days to tear it out and replace it and let it cure and
yeah,
maybe a week
then you're
or two
done.
or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna cure quickly. Pervious concrete is basically rocks that are kind of glued together, so there's not a lot of material in between the rocks, which is why it lets water through. So it's a little bit more complicated to create. Then we had some playgrounds discussion. Hollywood is done. We knew that. There's an area in front of the playground at Ames that's a low spot, and it gets rather sloppy when it rains. And so we had some discussion about wood, or just what to do there, and staying away from the artificial turf since we aren't doing it out here. More of a wood chips and better drainage kind of thing.
It's actually that area to the back of the, when you say front, I think of back, so I don't think of it on the,
I guess I'm
Nuttall Street.
confused then.
It's
the
like
playground
beyond
and
the
then
play
the-
area.
Yeah, then the
There's
court and then the
yeah,
grass
right,
area,
beyond the basketball
yeah.
court.
Okay.
Yeah, but
The
it's-
solution is still valid.
Yeah,
It's-
exactly, yeah.
Basically, it needs some drain pipes, and
You think wood chips? Okay.
Well, I know it's an area that.
that's
you've
it. I
asked,
think
it's-
they'll
yeah.
propose something, but
That thing's been a mess since we installed it,
Yeah.
just because the kids trampled all over it, and then we waited a year that the kids couldn't use it, now they're trampling. It's
and
the
that's
same
why it's
concern I had about out
drainage.
here.
It's it's all about getting the water and not letting it sit there.
That is such a small spot. Would we get a lot of flack for just putting a small? Nobody can see it. It feels like we got to. I don't think wood chips are very usable, right? You can't play kickball on wood chips. You can, but
Arguably more painful.
anyway.
Next. We have another facility advisory meeting.
March
2
17th, and I
weeks,
have it back on
so-
the agenda still for more conversation.
So we'll revisit that.
Yeah.
Blythe, we kind of talked about. The village is looking at the title information again. I question whether or not they'll find anything new and interesting. Dave and I have a side bet that they will. It'll be interesting to see what this is all research based, so
Yeah.
we'll see. I think we were hoping for some more information before the school year's out. And then we know that there was a message earlier today that the village is also looking at putting in a basketball court out there, so I assume that's where this current fenced area is, so I don't think that actually changes.
Yeah, so I mean, I can insert here.
Yeah,
So
if
Martha and
you've
I
got better-
met with President Doug Pollock and the village manager Jessica Francis. I also talked to one of the board members on Parks and Rec about that. It is interesting. They're going through a bunch of vetting process. The Parks and Rec had done a big survey. I don't know if you guys saw that.
They did a study.
Yeah, I filled that out. And I was reading, actually, so the packet for the village was released, and I read through that. They have a meeting tomorrow where they're going to bring the IGA up, actually. And so we were talking, Martha and I were talking to Doug and Jessica about that. And they're going to modify a little bit of the language in there to say that the tennis court will be a multi-purpose. They're just kind of calling it a multi-purpose court. I'm not sure they fully know yet. I feel like they're still researching what exactly to do over there and where to do it, how to do it, based on the feedback from the Parks and Rec thing. But they want to help get the IGA moving so that we can start putting our design work together. And I did read in the packet and from the speaking with the Parks and Rec board person, they would like to participate in it. So just, I guess, as we go forward with our designs, just inviting them in early and just having them be a part of it, I think would be good. They've gotten a lot of feedback on just parks in general and like needing a modernized and upgraded parks, and compared to other communities and stuff like that, people would like to see enhanced parks. So my guess is they probably want to provide us some of that feedback of, we're doing it for the school, but is there a way that we can pick equipment that kind of facilitates the broader community and stuff like that? So they're hopefully going to approve that IGA tomorrow. Preservation didn't really have much of an issue with the playground component of it, but talking with Jessica, there was probably some desire to maybe do some more muted colors and things like they have over there now compared to what we have at some of the others. So we can take all that feedback in as we're getting like parent and student and broader community feedback in it and everything. But there wasn't any broad opposition. Actually, it said it in the packet for tomorrow's meeting about if the footprint of the playground needed to be bigger. There wasn't really a lot of opposition around that. We kind of talked around like DLA's. You put in a piece of equipment and you need a certain perimeter around it, and it's like, what can we actually get in there? And it didn't sound like there was going to be much of an issue if we wanted to enhance the footprint. We just got to be careful of the trees, as we always are. We even had that discussion around here, right? We don't want to be cutting down these gigantic trees that are around here. So
That's
I
really
think,
on DLA to do,
yeah,
to be attentive.
figure out what can we get in there and without damaging the roots and all that kind of fun stuff. So hopefully tomorrow they'll have an approval, and then we're hoping to bring that to the March 19th meeting for us to review and approve. So I think we're making some progress there. The titling is just funky, and we were kind of looking at some of the plots, and so part of it is going to be just I think, if I understood them correctly, it was just going to be like one big school plot, and then the rest of it was going to be village, or we'll see how it all shakes out.
Oh, do they
but-
want parcels combined?
Yeah, just to try to make the whole thing cleaner. And it was, you
Yeah.
understand that stuff better than I
I
do. If you want to
do.
read
I'll look at that.
yeah, that was part of it in
As
there,
long
just
as
like
that
cleaning
doesn't
it up.
cost us too much money, it's fine.
They said they were going to cover it.
Oh, well then.
In the
Actually,
paperwork that I read, it said that cost would be covered by the village for both the village and the school. We're going to put in a playground. I feel like we're kind of
Yeah.
doing each other. a
No,
favor a
then
little
that's
bit
the way.
there.
That's what I've been kind of advocating for, is a much more collaborative tone.
Yeah.
And if Parks and Rec is helping to, or we'll call it helping with the design, then that means that the ultimate approval should be much more amenable.
Yeah. That'd be the goal.
I
yeah.
don't like getting into color discussions because honestly, just make people happy.
We'll see how it goes.
I've been in too many discussions about color.
Yeah. So I think we're making progress on that. The basketball court's a whole nother thing, and that was from the survey results that were shared in there. There was like overwhelming feedback in the comments about wanting a basketball court, and I think it said something like the national parks is like 1.6 and the Illinois something or other is 2 point whatever, and we have 0. So they're just trying to figure out where to put in a basketball court, whether it's there or someplace else. So I think they're still trying to figure out what that exactly looks like. I don't think that's going to impede our ability to do a basketball court, and that's their land, and if they want to do something with that later, that's fine.
There's a lot of unused land there.
Yeah.
There's room for both, easy.
Basketball courts end up being a hot button issue because our kids are out there at times that other people that
There it
times
is.
that grumpy adults don't want them to be there.
I've seen the petition going around
It
for a basketball court. I've
always-
heard of the one that's not for a basketball court. So
That's always the case. Basketball courts just devolve into a lot of opinions.
and then the other thing is if they research it, what are the water implications? Because we always have to think about water implications. So,
Well, if they do the
Might not even be
basketball
able to-
court, they're going to have to deal with that too.
yeah. So if that were to cause a retention situation, I don't think it's going to happen because it's probably not worth it to dig a big old retention pit
No.
under there just for a basketball court. So that's not our piece of the puzzle. But as a community member, I'm all for giving people more outdoor recreation space, but at a reasonable cost too. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think as far as our part goes, we should, I think, have an IGA on the table at the next meeting, so be on the lookout for that. Unless something happens at tomorrow night, it seemed like that was pretty much moving forward. All the committees seemed on board with going forward with the proposal and everything, so I think we're going to get a yes vote on it. So see what happens. But we'll probably have that for conversation 2 weeks from now.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's really good news.
Yep.
That discussion happened. Then we talked about some long range maintenance, which is also Jim's chart of kind of planning out future budgeting for various projects. And one thing that we did have a long discussion about, and this it kind of developed because the science teacher had requested new tables in the science lab at Hauser, and that generated a larger discussion that you can't just swap out tables because there's equipment attached to those, i.e. water and gas equipment. So then I'm going to summarize by saying we thought that should be pushed to the strategic plan because that's a discussion about what do we need for science and lab space and what do we really need in terms of curriculum and how do these things fit together. And then that also generated the thought that perhaps the strategic plan, and I'm kind of making something up as I go here, but that the strategic plan would also look at general improvements at Hauser, including the PE space and the lockers, and then the library space, and then there's a classroom upstairs that's always been a very odd, elongated shape. I remember it well from when my daughter was at Spanish up there, and then there have been commentary from other Hauser staff, and then there was also a comment on some kitchen equipment. So this is more of a strategic item because
Ties in with all
it
stuff.
ties in with more substantial improvements at Hauser.
What is the LED lighting?
LED lighting is something that I keyed off of on some outside reading, and that is a number of states have already started to ban long fluorescent tubes, like the 4-foot long ones. These would be these are actually 4-foot long. They're just U-shaped. I think you can see that.
Yep.
But fluorescent tubes are starting to be banned in various states, and Illinois, I believe, is on a 2029 ban. So at
Okay.
some point, you can no longer get these, and or they start getting really, really expensive. So LED is going to be in our future at some point, so
Wow, it's a lot of lights to replace.
that's why I brought it up.
Okay.
So that sits under long-range maintenance.
It's a long-range plan, and there's two ways to do it, and one is you can, all of these fixtures have a ballast in them, which is a piece of equipment that reduces voltage, or does things to the voltage to make it work for fluorescent, and you can either buy bulbs that continue to use that ballast, or you can rewire the fixtures to get rid of the ballast entirely and just power things directly off your standard current. Powering things off the standard current is much more energy efficient. Ballasts are basically burning a lot of heat, so it's a long-range plan item. We've talked about trying to keep everybody up to date on some of this stuff. That's one of them.
Okay. It's a lot of lights.
I wonder if there'd be some type of like grant or funding or provided to schools to come into
ComEd
compliance
has
with this.
grants for lighting improvements.
Yeah.
I just, in the current
Energy
environment,
Yeah.
some of those grants and things may be,
Not priority.
we may struggle a little bit on those, and that's just a neither here nor there. Well, it'd be great if we can get grants, and like I said, ComEd does have things. I don't know what those look like right now, and I don't know what they'll look like in 2 years. Power companies like it because it means they reduce power use here, so they don't need to build as many generating plants out there. So that's why they do give grants.
All right. Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Joel. Let's see. Next, we don't have anything for policy.
You're correct.
All right, and nothing for personnel.
We met a few weeks back, had some discussions. Goal 3 is listed here. That's hiring and retraining high-quality staff. And otherwise, nothing to report.
All right. Okay. Kathy left me. No, she didn't. She's over there.
Over there.
No other public comment?
There's not.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, I just looked over there. She looked. So that brings us to the close of this session. We are going to go into closed session. So the future meeting dates here are March 19th. There's going to be a regular business meeting at 7 p.m. here in the Hauser Learning Resource Center. April 2nd, committee of the whole meeting at 7 p.m. in the Hollywood Multipurpose Room. April 16th, a regular business meeting at 7 p.m. here in the Hauser Learning Resource Center. May 7th will just be a short meeting for our biennial organizational meeting. We'll have a new board member on, and we'll do our committee placements and everything, and then adjourn. And then May 21st, 2025, the regular business meeting at 7 p.m. here in the Hauser Auditorium. So with that, is there a motion from the board to go into closed session for the purpose of collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees?
So moved.
Second.
So just to clarify, we're going into closed with no action to follow.
And with no action to follow, yes, thank you, Dan. Did I get a second?
A second.
Yes, you did.
Kathy, will you call the roll, please?
Okay. Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Kalick? Aye. And Mr. Muirhead?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank
and
you.
Closed session will be in collector 103.